Chapter 1. His life was a cheap coffee, a dead-end job, and a silent scream, until 5 a.m. finally answered back. The coffee tasted of burnt plastic, a lukewarm sludge from the office machine that gurgled like a dying man. The job was a spreadsheet with columns that stretched into infinity, a digital graveyard where his ambitions were buried one cell at a time. And the scream was the tight, hot pressure behind his eyes every time Mark strolled past his cubicle. Mark, with his perfectly tailored shirt, his smug smile, and the promotion that should have been Alex's. He was not just a colleague, he was a walking, talking monument to Alex's failure. Today, the scream was deafening. Mark had just been handed the Apollo project, the one account that could have been a lifeline. Alex's role. Data integrity support, a corporate euphemism for checking Mark's work for typos. That afternoon, trying to drown his rage in another cup of acidic coffee, Alex heard Mark's voice from a nearby computer. He was a guest on some business podcast, his voice a slick, confident purr. "You have to be ruthless with your time," Mark declared. "While my competition is hitting the snooze button, I am at my desk by 5 a.m. I win the day before anyone else has even had their coffee." The words were not inspirational, they were a declaration of war. A cold, sharp fury cut through Alex's apathy. He would not just match him. He would obliterate him. That evening, he waged his own small rebellion, setting his alarm not for his usual 7:30, but for 5 o'clock a.m. Sharp. The choice felt like cocking a gun. But when the alarm shrieked the next morning, the gun fired blanks. Alex found himself in the suffocating darkness of his kitchen, the silence amplifying his exhaustion. He just sat there, scrolling through photos of other people's perfect lives until it was time to leave for the job he hated. He was just as miserable, only now he was also tired. Then, at 9:15 a.m., an email from his boss, Mr. Henderson, landed with the force of a bomb. Subject: Urgent, Apollo Project Timeline. Henderson was moving the deadline up by a week. The final line chilled him to the bone. "Given the accelerated timeline, I'll be monitoring individual performance on this project hourly. There is no room for error." The stakes had not just been raised, they'd been launched into the stratosphere. His 5 a.m. alarm was no longer a choice. It was a ticking clock strapped to his career. Chapter 2. The descent into hell was brutally fast. Each 5 a.m. alarm was a physical assault, dragging Alex into a cold, dark reality where he'd stare at the glowing spreadsheet, his mind a swamp of fatigue and resentment. He was not building a better future, he was just polishing the bars of his own cage 2 hours earlier than everyone else. The spiral began. A misplaced comma in a report. A key deadline he forgot to flag. He was a ghost haunting his own life, a zombie fueled by cheap caffeine and a simmering rage. By Thursday, he was so sleep-deprived that during a critical team call, when Mark asked for the revised budget figures, Alex sent over the wrong file, an outdated draft with a catastrophic miscalculation that undervalued the entire project by nearly 30%. He did not realize his mistake until an hour later, when a new email from Mark appeared, CC ING Henderson and the entire department. "Team," it began, a quick reminder on the importance of attention to detail. "I caught a significant error in the projections Alex sent over. All fixed now, but we need to be vigilant." It was not a helpful correction, it was a public execution. The shame was a physical force, squeezing the air from his lungs. Henderson summoned him into his glass office. The door clicked shut, the sound echoing his doom. "Alex," Henderson said, his voice flat and cold. "I see not afford liabilities on this project. This is your final warning." The words were like shards of ice. That night, Alex stumbled home in a daze. He stared at his phone, at the 5 a.m. alarm set to torture him again. It was not a secret weapon. It was a lie. A cruel myth peddled by predators like Mark to the desperate. With a final surge of defiant fury, he deleted the alarm. He was done. He collapsed into bed, surrendering to the crushing weight of his failure. The scream inside him had finally died, replaced by a hollow, terrifying silence. Chapter 3. He could not leave it like that. He had to fix the file, to erase the stain of his incompetence, even if it was his last act at the company. Alex drove back to the desolate office, the sole occupant in a steel and glass tomb. He worked for hours, fueled by a self-loathing that burned hotter than any caffeine. He corrected every number, rebuilt every formula, and finally, around 4 a.m., he slumped over his keyboard, defeated. He was woken by a low, mechanical hum. The cleaning crew's floor buffer. He lifted his head, the imprint of the spacebar on his cheek. His monitor glowed with the time, 5:03 a.m. But this 5 a.m. was different. There was no blaring alarm, no crushing obligation. There was only stillness. A profound, absolute quiet that seemed to clean the clutter from his mind. And in that stillness, a shocking truth detonated in his brain: the problem was never the time. The problem was the spreadsheet. Waking up early to dedicate more hours to the very thing that was destroying him was a form of insanity. The magic was not in the hour itself, it was in owning it. A dangerous spark ignited within him. He pushed the Apollo file to the corner of his screen and opened a blank document. He started to type. An idea he'd buried years ago, a simple app that helped office drones like him identify and develop marketable skills to escape their corporate prisons. The exit plan. He outlined features, sketched a user interface, lost himself in the act of creation. He was so absorbed, he did not hear the whisper of expensive shoes on the carpet behind him. Well. Burning the midnight oil, Alex. Or should I say the 5 a.m. oil? Mark's voice was a stiletto in the silence. Alex's blood turned to ice. He slammed his laptop shut, but it was too late. Mark leaned over, a predatory grin spreading across his face. What was that? The exit plan. A little side hustle. On company property, on company time, after a final warning for poor performance. Oh, Henderson is going to love this. The spark of hope was brutally extinguished. Mark had him. He was not just going to be fired for a mistake. He was going to be fired for trying to dream. He had found the bottom, only to realize there was another, deeper level of hell waiting for him. Chapter 4. Standing in Henderson's office felt like standing in a morgue. Mark was by the window, the triumphant executioner. Alex was in the center of the room, a dead man walking. Mark informs me, Henderson began, his voice devoid of any warmth, that you were misusing company resources to work on a personal project. This was it. The end. But as Alex looked at Mark, ready for the final blow, he saw past the smug grin. He saw the deep, dark circles under his eyes, the twitch in his jaw. Mark was not a god. He was just another prisoner, one with a nicer suit, terrified of the day his own key card would stop working. And in that moment, Alex's fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, liberating clarity. He's right, Alex said. His voice was steady. It did not even sound like his own. Mark's smile faltered. Henderson's head tilted. Alex continued, turning to face his boss directly. Because while I was fixing my mistake on the Apollo spreadsheet, a mistake born of pure burnout, I realized the true problem. The system is broken. We waste hundreds of man-hours on manual processes that are begging for human error. It's inefficient, and it's destroying your employees. He took a breath. My personal project is a proof of concept for a software tool that automates that entire workflow. It would have prevented my mistake. It would cut project setup time by 75%. It would save this company more money on this single project than you pay me in a year. He saw a flicker of something in Henderson's eyes. Greed. Mark saw it too. That's absurd. It's just an idea. Mark sputtered. It's more than an idea, Alex said, pulling out his phone. He had built a crude but functional online prototype while waiting for his execution. It's a working demo. Henderson leaned forward, his eyes locked on the screen, the gears of calculation turning in his mind. Mark was utterly silent, his victory turned to dust in his mouth. An hour later, Alex walked out of the office, leaving two stunned men behind. Henderson had offered him a new position, a department to develop his tool in-house. Alex had looked him in the eye and said, "No, thank you." He was not interested in a more comfortable cage. 6 months later, Alex sat in his own apartment, which now doubled as his office. The 5 a.m. light was soft and golden. A ceramic mug, filled with rich, dark coffee that he had ground himself, warmed his hands. On his screen, the exit plan was live, with its first 100 paying subscribers. No alarm had woken him up. He just woke up, hungry to build. The cheap coffee was a distant memory. The dead-end job was a scar. The silent scream had become a battle cry. And every morning, when the world was quiet, it was the only voice he could hear.